Ladies and gentlemen, seekers of light and secret knowledge wherever you may be, you are listening to Points of Light Radio, the podcast dedicated to taking you past the apron and behind the closed doors of lodges everywhere. And here is your host, Stan Miller.
Greetings, brothers and sisters. Shalom. Assalamu alaikum. Adnastana. It's a pleasure to be back here with you in 2025 and continuing this journey of light and knowledge. And in this particular segment, we'll be continuing our look at the history of fraternalism by investigating the ancient noble order of Gormogons. Hope I said that right. Now, the Gormogons were a short-lived 18th century society, and they're believed to have been formed by an expelled Freemason. What is it about these Freemasons and former Freemasons, right? Now, what does Gormogon mean? Well, according to Castle's Dictionary of Slang, Gormogon is a contraction of words, Gorgon and dragon. Okay. Other sources say that the word Gormogon is a compound Chinese word consisting of Gor, signifying brother or friend, and Mo, a word for eminence, and Gon, signifying antiquity, or that province of Mogun. Okay. Now, this sounds rather interesting, doesn't it? So let's move forward and investigate, shall we? But as I always ask you, and I've asked you before, and I'm asking you again, are you still thirsty for knowledge? Are you still searching for the light? Then just trim your lamp and follow me. Now, as you heard me say earlier, the ancient noble order of Gorgomons was a short-lived 18th century secret society, and it was formed by an expelled Freemason named Philip Wharton, seen here. According to sources, the Gorgomons had their genesis in a 1723 session of the newly formed Grand Masonic Lodge of England. On the 21st of June, 1722, Philip Wharton was elected the 6th Grand Master of the Premier Grand Masonic Lodge of England. His deputy was Dr. John de Rigollet, and his Grand Warden was James Anderson. Now, Wharton was a politician with strong Jacobite leanings, and he's believed to be the founder of the notorious Hellfire Clubs in London. That is a topic for a future segment of Points of Light Radio. Now, the Hellfire Clubs were satirical gentlemen's clubs which mocked religion and upheld the trend of blasphemy, which was prevalent in Great Britain at that time. Now, as I said, Philip Wharton was elected to be Grand Master in 1722. In 1723, at a Masonic session, Mr. Wharton tried to make it so that the Grand Master could not appoint his deputy Grand Master. Right? He was essentially trying to establish the deputy Grand Master as an elected position. Now, other sources say that Philip Wharton attempted to extend his term but was thwarted. Now, when the members refused, the minutes of the session state that the late Grand Master, and I'm quoting, went away from the hall without ceremony, end of quote, which leaves readers with two interpretations. Either Philip Wharton declared the meeting closed and resigned his position without being properly relieved by the new Grand Master, or he was removed from his position, forcibly removed from his position as Grand Master. Now, irregardless of the circumstances, Mr. Wharton left the fraternity and left the Freemasons in 1723. The very first mention of the Gorgomons appeared in 1724 in the London Daily Post. In the announcement, they claimed it was a secret society that was started in China thousands of years before Adam. Folklore is one thing, but that sounds a little far-fetched, doesn't it? Right? The article also declared that the Freemasons were not welcomed into the Gorgomons unless they were willing to leave the Masonic fraternity and be degraded, which was defined to mean the burning of your apron and white gloves. That's interesting. The same year, a letter appeared announcing a prominent Freemason left Freemasonry and joined the Gorgomons by being, as I said earlier, degraded. Many presumed Wharton was the prominent Freemason that was mentioned. Right? Very little was heard about the Gorgomons until 1728, when an article appeared announcing a meeting. This was a year after Wharton had been charged with high treason for supporting the King of Spain during the 1727 siege of Gibraltar. Wharton never returned to England, okay, for fear of being put on trial. Philip Wharton passed away on May 31st, 1731. After his passing, there were no further announcements or articles of the Gorgomons. Now, during its brief existence, the Gorgomons were accused of being a group with Jacobite leanings that I mentioned earlier. One possible reason for this was their first known Grand Master, or as they called it, Ecumenical Vulgi, was Andrew Michael Ramsay of Ayr, Scotland. He was a man with strong Jacobite convictions. The Gorgomons appear to have been a charitable organization, at least according to their surviving bylaws. There are also some surviving pendants and badges bearing their signs. In the end, the objective of the ancient noble order of Gorgomons was meant to hold Freemasonry up for ridicule, or so it seems, doesn't it? Oh, brothers and sisters, there you have it, the ancient noble order of Gorgomons. Some of my personal observations on this organization. First of all, fraternalism, as you've heard me say before, was taken extremely seriously in times past. And the ancient noble order of Gorgomons was a prime example. Another example you might have seen in the past here on Points of Light Radio was the May 20th, 2024 segment, where we investigated the anti-Masonic party from the United States. Right? Now, this was a little different, though. The ancient noble order of Gorgomons and the Freemasons, I mean, they traded barbs, partly because the Gorgomons were started in bad blood, let's be honest, right? Now, here's a prime example of one of those barbs. This is a cartoon entitled The Mystery of Masonry Brought to Light by Ye Gorgomons. Now, it featured some extraordinary caricatures. Now, in this picture, it is believed that the figure with his head through the ladder might have been intended to feature James Anderson. Now, the figure in armor was Philip, Duke of Wharton, and the figure on the donkey is perhaps John de Brigoulet, right? Again, why do we not take fraternalism this seriously anymore? Maybe it's good that we don't, shall we say. But, the Gorgomons, like I said, were started by Philip Wharton because of some ill will he felt between him and the Freemasons on his exit. And there again, that's possibly a feature for a future segment of Points of Light Radio. Why did you leave your fraternal organization, and what were the circumstances surrounding it? Now, I'll close with this. In the event of exiting or resigning from a fraternal order, one should be certain of the reasons for doing so, but also those exiting these fraternal orders should avoid any acrimony, because obviously, as I said earlier, Philip Wharton felt some sort of ill will towards Freemasonry when he resigned. And personally, I feel that some of that ill will may have led to at least the short-term success of the Gorgomons, but it also was possibly the reason that the organization didn't last in the long run. An organization like this formed in many ways a fit of anger. How successful could it seriously have been, right? Right. So all I will say is, I'll close with this. Let's keep it civil, brothers and sisters, as Hebrews 13:1 says, let brotherly love continue, right? Both joining and during your time, and if resigning, let that brotherly love continue. I'll leave it there. I hope you enjoyed this. I know I did. Before I go, though, I do want to remind you that this podcast is available on both YouTube and Spreaker. Please share, like, and subscribe when viewing Points of Light Radio on YouTube. I also welcome your comments and input. I want to hear some of your comments on this particular segment as well, like why you may or may not have left a fraternal order. You can follow Points of Light Radio on my Facebook page at facebook.com/Points of Light Radio. My Twitter handle is at PO Light Radio. You can see the link to my Spotify channel, as well as my Points of Light Radio store and the PayPal link, which I want to remind you, you can hit on that link, make a voluntary donation towards Points of Light Radio, and we will use that money to move the podcast forward. Brothers and sisters, until we meet again, just step into the light and let brotherly love continue.